I just started following doulas, and I saw more and more stuff about natural childbirth and just information about how childbirth works physiologically. And it just got me more interested because I think for a while I would think, okay, I can get the epidural. That will make me feel better. And as I learned more, I started feeling the opposite. If I know how to do it on my own and don't have to rely on that, then I'll feel safer.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. I have Tamra here today, and I always say I'm so excited to have you, but it's because I haven't seen you in a couple months. So tell me how old your baby is. I know your husband's at work today, but I'm so excited to hear about your birth story.
Thank you. Actually, my husband's home with Ollie. My son is Oliver, and my husband Connor is with him, giving him a nap right now. Oliver is 5 months, and we call him Ollie most of the time. Yeah.
It was funny when we were first talking about your birth story because most of us find out we're pregnant, either we're sick or we take a test. And when you took a test, there were actually 2 positive tests that you took. So can you tell us how that worked out?
We had gone on a short trip to visit some family. And when we got back, Connor was sick and we were like, oh no. And he took a test. He had COVID. And I remember saying like, oh, I really was hoping I'd get a positive pregnancy test before I got a positive COVID test because I hadn't had COVID yet either. And I did, and it was about 2 hours before I got the COVID test. So I took a pregnancy test, and then it was positive, and then 2 hours later, I got a positive COVID test. And I knew I had it. So it was a weird time because we were so excited. We'd been trying, and we were so ready. But then I had COVID, and I had a fever, and I didn't feel good, and so it was a little bit strange because we didn't know how to navigate that and we were nervous about it.
Did the doctors tell you anything about that?
Not a ton. I called our OBGYN office and they basically told me just keep your fever down with Tylenol and then stay super hydrated. And then if you feel like really horrible, go in. But Tylenol worked pretty well just to keep my fever down. I think that's what they're most worried about is fever. And so we were able to keep it pretty down. And so it turned out okay. But they didn't sound too worried. Like I was pretty freaked out, but they sounded like it happened and COVID is definitely going around. Them not being too worried made me feel better.
And it wasn't the first wave of COVID. It'd been a year and a half, 2 years before, right? I know I was surprised the last time I went in with my daughter. They were just like, everyone was walking around. They did have masks on, but they weren't even concerned about it. I was like, you're not in like paper gowns with plastic all over. They're like, yeah, everybody has it. Like, I haven't gotten sick yet. I've been fine, but everybody has it. I was like, wow, things have changed since the first ride of fear mongering. Yeah, it was scary at
Definitely.
first. That's a funky way to come into pregnancy. And we come into pregnancy full of worries, fears, whatever, just from what we've heard on TV or our family. So what were you coming into birth with? Did you have good stories to rely on in your family, or was it the usual that we all have?
I actually, personally in my family, feel like I had pretty positive experiences around me from my mom mostly, is who I had talked to. And she had there's 3 of us, and she had me unmedicated, but she didn't have a lot of prep. I think it was pretty tough. And then she had my brother, she got an epidural. And then she had my sister, she did hypnobirthing, and she did unmedicated. And she always said that was the best birth that she had. It was also her 3rd, so she knew what she was doing, but she just loved that experience. And so she always, I remember her like in shows and movies, she'd be like, that's not what birth, that's not real. So that was like a nice reminder, but I still I think it's just everywhere. I still thought it's the hardest, most horrible thing you're ever going to have to do. And you just have to get through it. And there's no way it can be positive, even though she told me differently, but it's just out there. It's pretty set in our culture that childbirth is the worst thing you can do.
And I think you said the one thing that everybody says, we just have to get through it to get the baby. The worst experience ever. I have to get through it, but I get a baby on the other side. So it's going to be worth it. And I felt the same way, like numb me from top to bottom. As long as I don't have to feel the pain that everybody has told me I'm going to feel, I'm absolutely good. But what did you do to prepare for birth and all that kind of stuff? Like how early did you start and what were your best preparation methods?
I started pretty early because I was just freaked out and I just wanted to have a plan. So the first things I found were actually on Instagram. I just started following doulas and I saw more and more stuff about natural childbirth and just information about how childbirth works physiologically. And it just got me more interested because I think for a while I would think, okay, I can get the epidural. That will make me feel better. And as I learned more, I started feeling the opposite. If I know how to do it on my own and don't have to rely on that, then I'll feel safer. And then my friend gave me a hypnobirthing book, and it was just so fascinating. The one that we used in your class, actually. So I was reading that before, and I already knew about it from my mom, but it was really cool to read the book. That kind of got me started on that path. And so I started researching classes and found the birth center. And yeah, so I found the class, and then I was also looking for a doula because that was really important to me. Someone who knows what's going on because there's just so much to know. It's crazy. And I started listening to birth stories. I found that to be like one of the most helpful things I did was just listen to all different kinds of birth stories. But yeah, I think just like getting educated as much as possible, just about like how birth works, how epidurals work, how it all works so that you have all the information. That was my plan.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you understand how your body's supposed to work, right? Because then if you do add an intervention or medicine or whatever, you know what we're trying to do with that and how to get back into that same physiological movement going forward.
And it's complicated. I didn't realize that the epidural itself is complicated too. You know, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it only works on one side. There's different levels to it. Even if you decide I'm just going to, from the beginning, have an epidural, I feel like there's just still so much to know. Like your body's still going through the same process. So I just wanted to understand all of that.
And we don't realize, no one ever talks to us also about the medication. Yes, cannot. Like in the moment, they're whipping out, it could happen like this, it could do this. You don't even care, right? You're just saying yes to it. And then if it doesn't go according to plan, how you imagined it, then you're super stuck with no tools. And that's not fair either, because I think we should know all aspects so that we're not caught off guard, because that's where we get off track and have not such a positive birth experience.
Yeah, because I think that's scarier if you're in pain, but you don't know how to manage and then you're waiting for relief and then it doesn't come. I think that probably just makes it feel 10 times longer and harder.
Absolutely. And did you hire your doula early or later?
We hired her in the middle of when we took the hypnobirthing class. So I think I was probably 24, 25 weeks. And we didn't do a ton with them until later on, but I felt better just having them, just knowing that we had a doula and knowing I could ask them questions. And they did a lot of good like community stuff. So I like had a place I could go. So it just made me feel better knowing that we were prepared with that.
Yeah, you picked a really good doula pair for that. They do a lot in the community and connect families in a really awesome way. Okay, so tell me about your labor, your birth story, like how it started, where it went.
Yeah. So I had Ollie on a Thursday. My contractions started Tuesday afternoon. Pretty manageable. I could tell when I had the first one, I was like, oh, okay, that was actually a contraction. That it like felt different. I'd been having just like cramps, and I remember being like, oh, okay. So I texted Connor, he was at work, and I was like, I think I'm having contractions, but they're all over the place. They took a long time. Between each one, it was a long time. And then it would get closer and then it would get farther. But they were all super manageable. I was kind of like reading and hanging out. And that pretty much lasted all night. I slept a little bit. And then Wednesday, I feel like picked up another level, but they were still like pretty manageable. Connor and I went on really slow walks around the neighborhood. He stayed home. I tried to eat a lot, stay hydrated, because that's what I remember most people telling me is stay hydrated and eat while you can because it's so exhausting. Yeah. So we were taking walks. They were manageable. I was staying hydrated. I was eating, and I just tried to relax. And that's where I used a lot of the hypnobirthing tracks. I had written out all the affirmations about, I think my favorite one was, your contractions can't be stronger than you because they are you. So that made me feel, for some reason, that just like really worked for me. So I had written them all out. And so I was like reading them and listening to the tracks. And I did a lot of just bouncing on the yoga ball and stretching, just like moving in different positions.
I was just going to say, I think people don't realize how boring early labor really is.
Yeah.
It just goes. That's why it's not a TV show, because it's so boring. You just are like, how much time do I have to spend just like waiting in between these surges? It's kind of ridiculous. And it's your body's process. So if you just stay hydrated, eat, rest, that's actually your best bet, is to wait it out instead of getting anxious. And it's taking so long. It's actually better that it does that. It's just a gradual buildup of hormones, etc. But people are really surprised usually how boring it is.
It was really boring. And another thing, so I had the lovely doulas, Ginger and Laura, and it was nice to have them because I knew from your class to wait at home and to be patient. We knew it wasn't active labor, but it was taking a while. And so I remember texting them and being like, okay, they're 5 minutes apart. Okay, they're 10 minutes apart. And Ginger was like, stop timing them. Like, just relax. And you'll know when they start to be like consistent enough. And that was really helpful. Like, she just reminded us to just relax. She gave us like spinning babies stuff to do. So we did some exercises that she had given us. And we just hung out. And then Wednesday night, I told Connor to go to sleep because I wanted him to be rested, but I couldn't really sleep. So I just watched New Girl and hung out. I tried getting in bed with him and I fell asleep, I think for like maybe 10 minutes. And then my water, I think it had started to break, but my water like really broke and I had a huge contraction and it woke me up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is different. So we called Ginger right then because I was like, I know that this is different. And from then on, it was like pretty intense. So it just picked up a lot. So Ginger came out, that was like 4 a.m. I think Ginger came over by 5. And then she just helped me labor at home, which was really helpful. Connor was really, really wonderful. Like, he remembered everything from the class. He did all like the massage and the hip squeezes. And he was like helping me relax. But it was nice when Ginger came in and she just took over hip squeezes and she's so good at them. And she just gave us ideas for other things to do, like when to try getting in the shower. She tried to have me do sideline, but I hated it. It was probably super, super helpful, but it was really painful.
It is so uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable. And then she gave us a good tip she was like, if we go to the hospital, we have to go before or after 7 because shift changes at 7. She wanted us to avoid that time. And that was, I think, a really helpful call. So we went to the hospital around 7:30. And I was pretty much in labor land. I think they were like 2 minutes apart at that point, but I think because my water broke or he was just really low. So it all felt like one big contraction because it was just like a lot of pressure. And the drive wasn't as bad as I thought. It wasn't great, but I heard it can be really horrible. So made it through that.
Maybe because you were in labor land.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I didn't want to listen to the affirmations once active labor started. They really helped me. All the hypnobirthing tracks helped me until active labor started. And then I wanted silence and nothing. But we went to the hospital and I was 7 centimeters. I was so happy. I do remember telling Connor, if I'm not at least 6 centimeters, I don't know if I can do it. And he was great. He like really talked me through it. We had a safe word. So he was going to help me work through it unless I said the safe word. And then he would get me the epidural.
And what's your safe word?
I think it was Zazu. It was like a typo I wrote to our doulas. And we were like, that's a great word. So we just chose it.
You'll never accidentally say that. That would be a very distinct word to say.
Yeah. So he like talked me through that first moment of, I don't know if I'm not like far along, I don't know if I can do it. But I was 7 centimeters, which was really helpful. I think all that early labor just and moving through it helped a lot. And I don't remember triage that much. Like time just disappeared in my brain. But yeah, they just monitored me. They let me do intermittent monitoring, which was really nice. So they just checked me on and off. And then we pretty much went straight to a labor and delivery room. And I labored there for another few hours, and he was born at 11:30. It wasn't a super long time. It was really fast. Laboring on the toilet in the hospital was really helpful. And Ginger just helped give me new positions to try to make things move along faster, which was super, super helpful. And Connor did a lot of hip squeezes, and they just like reminded me to relax. And then pushing was hard, but it was also super cool. Pushing was like, all of a sudden I came back into the world. I was like aware again. And we put on music, and it was like pretty cool because I like knew that it was close. And I pushed for 26 minutes, and then he was born. It was really nice.
Fantastic. And do you remember, people always ask, like, how will I know when I'm supposed to push? Did you feel that shift in your body?
Yeah, I remember one contraction all of a sudden. It was just like, I'm pushing. I wasn't planning on it. I'm just pushing. And I remember telling Ginger, Connor was with me, and so he told Ginger, and she was telling the nurse, and so they checked me. And I have a small cervical lip, so they were like, don't push. We have to get this lip out of the way. And I was like, I'm just doing it, though. I can't stop. But the nurse was wonderful. She and Ginger worked together to give me some positions, and the lip went away pretty quickly. They had me laying on my side, one leg over. It worked pretty well. Yeah. And then from then on, I started pushing. But yeah, the urge to push is so crazy. I've never felt anything that powerful before. He was just coming.
We try and compare it in class to like when you have a really big poop that's eminently coming out and you just can't stop it. But when it's got 7 pounds of baby behind it, it's even more intense.
Yeah, it was so intense. And it was that, again, knowing exactly what was happening, I think, because I've heard people say sometimes you back off pushing because you know it's going to hurt. But I think like being able to visualize what was going on, I was able to like work with it and just lean into it a little bit. And that is where like the hypnobirthing and just the understanding of the process helped so much, because I really felt like I was just like in it and ready to go because I could visualize what was going on. Yeah, it was cool. It was crazy, but it was cool.
And I like how you said, I came back into my body. All of a sudden it was like, oh, we're in it. That's how I felt too.
It's so amazing. I think I was just in another world, and then you come to push, it's crazy how your mind does that.
And we had done what we always do in class when we do visualizations. We visualize ourselves in labor, what our face looks like, what our body, how supple our body is, and how we're relaxed and moving. And then how that feels when that baby first lands on your chest. And you look at them, you smell them, your partner's there. What did the visualizations that you did in class, how did that translate to actually the reality of what happened?
I feel it was very close, I would say. I think I was just in shock. I just couldn't believe it. But they put him right on my chest, and he smelled, well, I remember you told us sometimes they smell like cupcakes to people. So I remember sniffing his head. I was like, and I was like, he doesn't smell like cupcakes, but he smelled really good. And it was just like so wonderful. Connor was right there. And I think I was just in a daze. I think, because I've heard stories of like babies latching right away and just nursing. And so I think I thought that was like gonna happen, but it didn't at all. He just was happy to lay there. He cried, and then he just curled up, and it was so sweet. So we got that full first hour, which was really lovely. They did a few tests, but they mostly gave us that time. And then I had a small tear, so like I had to have some stitches. But other than that, we were just like, the hour just flew by in my mind. I don't really even know, but it was pretty magical.
Did Ginger get some pictures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
She took some nice photos. That was really nice. She also took some photos in labor where in my mind, I thought I was just like grimacing or I don't know. And I looked very calm and it shocked me, but it was good. Yeah.
You're like, Mom, look at my pictures. They're not horrific birth pictures. I actually look like I'm enjoying myself.
Like you said.
And it can feel very intense on the inside. I've watched moms where they are so mellow on the outside and inside they felt like they were at war. Like it was it was so intense, but their outer, what we all saw was this blissful looking, soft face, loose jaw, whatever. And inside they're like, what the F?
Yeah, it does feel like a very internal battle for sure.
It does. And what would you say the theme of your birth was? Like, what did you learn? How did you experience it? What do you feel like it came out like?
I think trust in my own body first off, just like letting the process happen. I feel like it surprised me that even during like early labor, I wasn't worried. I felt really calm. And the whole time I felt calm. I was never scared. It was intense. So maybe I wasn't calm, but I wasn't scared. So I think like trusting my body and knowing this is how it's supposed to go. I was really proud of myself for that because I think your class and like all the work leading up to that made that possible. And then just like communication with Connor, he was so, so wonderful. And I feel like we like prepped really well. That was like a huge thing for us to trust each other and work through it together. And I think it made us closer on the other side too.
That practice helps the partner get through watching his partner or her partner be in pain, because that's pretty intense to watch it, even though you're supporting it and you know what to do. It's very intense on that side to watch, because you like, do I fix it? Do I save her? What do I do?
Yeah, I will say Connor, so many kudos to him, because from my perspective, he was 100% calm and just like talking to me and steady. But he said that it was hard. Like he teared up a few times, which I had no idea. I never would have known that. So he did a great job. And I think Ginger being there helped too, because she could support him a lot, because, you know, just having another person there who really knows their stuff is helpful. But yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, as a doula, I've been in births where Dad will look at me with this, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I'm like, we're good. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, this is normal. And then you can see the relief and the breath. Okay, we're fine. I'm like, yeah, we're fine. I know her head just turned around, spun, and she's green, but it's all totally normal. Right? You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine.
And that's what Connor was good at telling me, like, this is normal, which was amazing. So I give your class a lot of props for that, because like he learned a ton. So I remember him being like, this is normal. We learned about this. So that was great.
You're like, good, because I don't remember this part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you take any of the tools from class and practice? Because it takes a lot of practice to have a natural birth. It is, if you just do it on a whim and it happens, that you're one of the 1/8%, because it takes a lot of practice, a lot of mindset shifting, a lot of focus, and a lot of non-fear to get through it in most cases. What tools do you think you were able to take into postpartum and just parenting from all of that to practice?
I think definitely just the ability to relax and breathe for a moment. I think the practice of that going into birth reminded me, like, even if you just do that for a few minutes, it's so helpful. And there's a lot of like frustration and tiredness and pain postpartum too, even though it's wonderful. Like there's a lot of really hard moments. And so I think that was really helpful, just to rely on those skills of relaxing. A lot of it just comes down to relaxing yourself and starting over. And I was just saying to Connor the other day that I was so good about that when I was pregnant, practicing it. And I think I need to do that more again, because it's not just good when you're pregnant. It's good like all the time. So yeah, those are really just helpful skills in general to breathe through things.
Well, there's always unexpected things in parenting. And it does help to take 4 deep breaths, reset our nervous system before we make rash decisions or respond in a reactive manner, because we're overtired. There's a lot. We haven't talked to our partner, even maybe slept with our partner for months. because someone's just trying to sleep with this baby and keep things mellow. And it's that recalibration that we all need, including the baby, because they're patterning off our nervous system.
Yeah. There's a lot of anxiety just around babies. Like, even if they are totally healthy, I feel like every new thing he did was like, oh my gosh, is that okay? So like calming yourself down and remembering to be like, everything is okay. And if it's not, we'll figure it out. So those were just helpful tools.
How do you think, because we talk a lot about intuition, going with your gut, finding your voice, all that kind of stuff during class, how tuned in do you feel like your gut is? If there is something wrong with Ollie, you're able to pick up on it rather than, oh wait, this is my gut saying everything's okay right now, he's just fussy, rather than there is something going on.
I was actually surprised. I feel like it's pretty good if I get my head out of the way. If I sit back for a moment and just really think about it, I am usually able to be like, okay, I'm just overthinking this. Or there have been a few times where I'm like, okay, this is something I want to look into. For example, recently I got my period again, so my milk supply went down, and he was getting really fussy at feedings. And before, he had been fussy because he was distracted, and I could just tell that this was different. And so I had a lactation consult, and he had lost 4 ounces in a week. So not a ton, but like he definitely wasn't getting as much as he needed. And so we were able to like make a plan and get my supply back up. And I just feel like most of the time I can tell myself it's fine. I know when things are okay, but I responded that time and I felt good about that. Something's different. So I think your gut is pretty strong, but you just have to let yourself listen to it.
We definitely know our babies. And I think through the birth process, you learn to trust your body. And those signals help guide your parenting.
Definitely.
Okay, so what advice would you give new parents? Whether it's preparation, whether it's setting goals, whether it's practice, what kind of advice would you give new parents?
I think for me, it's just the preparation. I think Connor and I felt so calm for the most part, going into birth and postpartum, because we had really prepared. We took class, we read a few books. I feel like your class really gave us like a comprehensive look at birth and somewhat postpartum too. So we had a direction to go into, and then we dove into a few things more that we wanted to know. But I think just educating yourself as much as possible so that you know where resources are when things come up was the best thing that we did. Like, we were able to feel calm and supported because we had we had our doulas, we met people in your class. I just think surrounding yourself with information is the best thing you can do.
Absolutely key. And I've had some families say, I just feel overeducated. There's so many things swimming in my brain. And the actual nice part about that is whatever you need will come to the surface, and the rest you're not going to remember anyway. So it's better to have a comprehensive overview of what's going on, because every single family takes a different piece of what's going to make sense through their filters. So you never know what one bit of advice that just comes through one day when you say it, you're like, that was weird. Why did I say that? I never say that. That's the one thing that particular family goes, and then in this we remembered. And I was like, that's the one time I've said that in my whole life, or that was the one time your mom probably said it, whatever. But everybody has different filters. So yeah, of course, obviously, I don't think you can ever be too overeducated unless you stay in your head and don't trust your body.
Yeah. And that's, I think the hard thing is you take all the information and then you have to trust yourself, and you have to know your baby and your family and use what you need, because sometimes that stuff is conflicting. And so then you have to go with what works for you. But for the most part, I think it's just understanding the process of everything. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, a simple process that's so complicated and yet it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
really cool.
It's absolutely, physiological birth is if we just understood that, I think no matter what we chose, it would be a better experience, because our body is pretty powerful, and it's working, like it works.
That is something that struck me, because I was listening to tons of birth stories. It made me feel so much better just to listen to other people's experiences. And, people who did hypnobirthing or some kind of preparation, and even if something went not how they planned and ended up with a C-section, or something went slightly different than they wanted, I feel like they always sounded so grounded and were able to get through it. And it was less traumatic just because they knew what was going on and they felt like they were able to make decisions. So like if they needed to make that decision in the last minute, they felt like they understood why and were able to do that for themselves. And I think that makes a huge difference how you feel afterwards.
So much. Because if you feel like things are being done to you or your choices are being stripped from you, it complicates a lot of things in your brain. Your feelings are conflicted about what goes on. Mm-hmm. And when you understand and you can make choices along the way, you do feel more in control, which is what one of our biggest fears are, is this whole process is so freaky. I don't want to feel out of control, but yet we don't get educated, which makes it more out of control, right?
Yeah. Because it's hard to do. The OBGYN's office, they just asked me 2 weeks before his birth, do you want the epidural or no? That was like the whole thing. That was like the whole conversation, which is fine, but you have to find they had a childbirth class at like a 1-day class. But I just think you have to find a lot of information yourself if you want to really dive into it. And that's a lot of work. It's hard. So I think it's tough for people sometimes to find all of that.
Yeah, and make it make sense, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's no common thread of, and everybody's birth is different and their goals are different. So that's the nice part about having a professional teach you is in class, somebody says, oh, I want an epidural. Everyone else is like, I want to go natural. Someone else is like, I have a planned cesarean. We can make all of that information fit for a comprehensive, comfortable, empowered, educated experience. Yeah. If you have someone that guides you, because you go on YouTube and it's, oh my gosh, there's so much. You just get overwhelmed. There's just too much.
Yeah.
Absolutely too much. True. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. And I know that you've moved away, but we look forward to the next time. And I hope that you'll come back for a refresher and allow us to see the second baby when that one shows up. 5 months, you got a while. You got a time.
Yeah, we got a while. But we loved your class. Connor loved it. We just had a great time. And I'm still really close with the other 2 couples in your class. We were getting together every week before I left, and we still talk a lot. So.
Yeah, it was a fantastic group. And I think the guys even got a little bit of bonding in there because everyone had similar questions, which is, I love group classes for that reason.
Yeah. And can I just plug the lovely doulas really quickly? They were really wonderful and I highly recommend them. Laura and Ginger work together. And so you meet both of them, but one of them is at your birth, and then they have great community events and lots of just resources. So.
And a lot of experience behind them and that motherly energy. They are incredible humans. I'm glad you had a good experience with them because they're fantastic.
They're great.
They're so great. So do the plug. I'm all about plugs, especially for doulas. Everybody get a doula if you can. Okay, absolutely. All right. We will be talking to you soon. So stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.